You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920, The Jersey.
All right, welcome back in. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, The Jersey, 609-919-9200. One of the best stories in college basketball right now is a local one, and that's the Princeton Tigers basketball team. Started off the year 4-6 and now have won 15 in a row and have a big matchup in the Ivy League coming up on Friday at Jadwin Gymnasium up against Harvard at 5 p.m. is tip-off. And now joining us is their head basketball coach in Mitch Henderson. Coach Zach Gelb, appreciate a few minutes, and how are you?
I'm doing great, Zach. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for coming on, and I appreciate it. Looks like nothing could go wrong right now with your basketball team. 15 in a row, that's unbelievable, Coach.
Yeah, I'm smiling right now. I mean, everybody, it's I've been saying we've been on the elevator on the way up for a while. I think the challenge is for us is to look at everything with a blank slate, right, and see if we can continue to get better. But I was really proud of the way we pushed through a tough road weekend, and we were able to clinch a share of the Ivy League championship this last weekend.
With your team, they're a resilient bunch, and you saw that this year. You lose Hans and Caruso early on in the season, and that's a tough way for those two guys to go out. You start off, like I said, 4-6. You told me before the year that you knew your team was tough and they were never afraid of the moment. Give me a moment maybe in the season, even after the early struggles, that you knew, hey, this team was going to turn it around and show their resiliency.
I thought there were two moments for me, and I've mentioned this a lot, but this team at Monmouth, we went to, after the dust had settled after, the current team as it is, we lost, another senior, another really experienced player. And I thought we played really, we didn't play exactly smart, but we played really tough, and there was no fear. And then we went to Bucknell 2 days later and beat what I think is a very good Bucknell team on the road right before we headed into the holidays. And that was it. That was the beginning of this current streak, and I think that really catapulted us into where we are now.
You always know a team is always going to have to overcome adversity, and we never like to see players go down clearly. But to see the way that this team has responded, like you're talking about, just give me a little bit more about these kids and what it's like to coach with them every single day.
I'm glad you asked. It starts with the seniors. We've got a really great group of guys and this began for us, Zach, a year ago. We played. We had a really rough loss at Harvard, which kicked us out of the first place in the Ivies, and we ended up playing in the NIT. We went down to Virginia Tech with almost the same team, and lost in overtime to a very good Virginia Tech team, and that's when this started. It really started then, and it's just the way teams kind of form and come together. We had a lot of guys coming back, but then you have these injuries, and then Spencer and Steve, I mentioned the seniors, Pete Miller, Keon Rayner, and then we've got Hans Braves, who's been hurt but still with the team, and I think that there's been. And then an emergence of Amir Bell, Devon Kennedy, Miles Stevens as leaders. So it's hard to put it into words. You feel like as a coach you do the same thing sometimes, but this group has the ability to dig a little bit deeper than not necessarily more than or better than anybody else, but they just can do it, and they can call on it. And there's another gear, especially defensively, and I think that's been the key for us.
When you guys got off to the slow start on the year and you lost your big-time players, what was the feel like in practice? Because these are still kids, and they see everything on the internet now, and they had all the high expectations, and I would have to assume that at one point early on in the year it was a little bit off to a gloomy start. So how did you just keep that motivation level up early on in the season?
We're trying to just block out some of the noise, the stuff you just mentioned. Really, it was the internal noise. Expectations can be a funny thing, and what I think happened with the injuries was it just it clarified everything for us. We weren't as good as we thought we were. We were exactly what our record said, but I think that we didn't have to change too much. We just had to get better at the things that we were trying to do and that we had been working on, and they focused on that. And then I mentioned that they focused on that really well, I think, at the Bucknell game, and they think they got that blueprint on, okay, this is what it looks like. when you're playing a really good team on the road and how you're going to have to be successful.
Mitch Henderson with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. I think the best part of college sports is just to see the relationships and the way that the relationship with the coach and the player develops over the span of 4 years, and sometimes even shorter than that, because when you're on this trail of recruiting and everything, you make promises to parents and they expect you to be that father figure to their kid. You've seen out of Spencer Weiss and then also Stephen Cook, just that relationship form with you. What is it like to coach those two guys?
Well, another great question, because we just had a moment together, and again, it's a share of the title. We're not breaking our arms, patting ourselves on the back here, but this really was, you mentioned it and you hit it right on the head. Like you develop these relationships, you talk about what it means to be a good team, and then it actually happens. And all I can tell you is, for me, it's satisfying to see, you mentioned Steve and Spencer, but Pete, Miller, and all the seniors we have, to put the work in and then see the rewards. Because I've had teams that did the work and didn't get a chance to get the rewards. So I don't know. It's incredibly satisfying that they get an opportunity to feel that. And you're right. It's something that this group will have forever, and they did that for themselves and for their teammates.
This year you've seen a player, and we always knew Amir Bell was a good player, but he went from starter then to coming off the bench, and he's just been sensational in this 15-game win streak. How do you describe the season Amir Bell's having, especially with the changes that he's had to undergo in this season?
Well, I think of it, it's the opposite of the regression to the mean, like that term where you're like coming back to normal. Well, it's like Amir, he had a tough time early on in the season, but no one was hitting the panic button, including Amir. He's an even-keeled kind of a kid, and this is the Amir we know, and he is doing very well, and the team often gets a lot better when he goes into the game, and I think that's a luxury in college basketball. So I'm glad that he's getting the recognition he deserves.
Always, and this is coaches talk, but it's actually true. Coaches always say it doesn't matter how you start, it matters how you finish. But for a kid, that kid wants to be in the starting lineup. Was it tough to try to keep his confidence up when you first made the change?
We had a direct conversation about it. I don't think I'd have to ask Amir to handle that, but I think if he had reservations about it, he kept them to himself. He kept plugging away, and he did, and continues to do what was best for the team. Of course, like, everybody wants to be on the floor, but you're right. Like, I don't know if there's been a game when he hasn't been on the floor at the end if it didn't involve foul trouble. So he's a pivotal part of what we're doing. He's one of, if not our best defenders, and there's a lot more to come from Amir.
Is that behavior kind of contagious when you see a guy who just appears to be so selfless and is willing to make that sacrifice just for the better part of the team?
Absolutely. I mean, even in a win streak where you're winning a lot of games, I mean, we've got our issues, and but those things tend to quiet down when your best guys and the guys that play a significant amount of minutes are doing whatever it takes and going about their business the right way. And this group's done that. They've been businesslike. And again, it starts with our leaders, the older guys. They're acting like veterans. They've been there before, and that does trickle down. I mean, people tend to model what's going on right in front of them.
Mitch Henderson with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Big game coming up Friday right here at Jadwin Gymnasium, going up against Harvard. And then before we know it, we will have Princeton playing in the Ivy League tournament at the Cathedral of College Basketball, the Palestra. You knew you had good players last year with Devonte and Miles. Just to see what they're able to do in year number 2, does that surprise you a little bit, or do you think this is where they were going to be?
I think, the consistency has been pleasant. I would say it's a pleasant surprise, but I don't think I'm taken back by it. I mean, in particular, Devin had some games last year where he kind of put us on his back and saved us, but Miles has been one of the most important players to what we've been doing, if not in many ways the most important guy, because he can guard the other team's best player, and he's had a couple double-doubles. It's this last weekend, for instance, Devin made 12 threes on the weekend, and that's, I didn't make 12 threes in like a season, I think, one time. And Miles is getting rebounds and scoring easy, like making baskets around the hoop look easy, and they're both doing it consistently, and that's what you hope for from younger guys. You don't always get it, and that's why you tend to lean heavily on the seniors, but they're playing beyond their years. You're right.
The defense of this group, too, just like you were saying, has been unbelievable in this streak. Just to see your defense is playing, how much more room is there to grow defensively? I know coaches always say we have to be better defensively, but it's pretty hard to get better than the defense you're playing right now, Coach.
Yeah, well, they've got what you want, and it's on autopilot a little bit right now. They've got a defensive DNA. That's the way that they think, and. We're down about 10 points a game on offense from where we were a year ago, but it's clearly helped our defense, which has been a big, if not the biggest part of our success. And when I come into the halftime room or after the game, Zach, they're having a conversation about what happens or what's happening on defense that I might have had with them 2 months ago. They're doing it now, and that's, I can tell you, it's rare. It's rare. It's fun it's fun to be a part of it.
Opponent coming up this Friday is Harvard. You guys seen them before this year. You won by a 1-point margin. They're a very good team. They're hot as well. Their last loss was to you guys. This Harvard basketball team, what stands out to you about them at the difficult matchup that you have coming up on Friday?
They've got experience at the point guard position in the kid Chambers. He's a veteran guard in the league. He's very smart, makes veteran plays. He was left-handed, and then alongside of him, they've got a freshman guard named Bryce Aiken, who's up. We know here in New Jersey, he's scoring the ball very easily. He might be one of the better one-on-one players in the league, and that we've seen in a long time. So that punch right there is very good. They're hot, as you mentioned. They defend. They're big. They're physical. We played well, I think, for 37 minutes, and then we kind of gave the game up. And we were really lucky to get out of there with a win the first time around. So we know this is going to be a huge challenge.
You're so familiar with Harvard, and you may see him again after Friday if you guys end up meeting up in the Ivy League tournament. As a coach, when you see a team so many times and you know how good they are, how do you try to find one extra way to just try to exploit a weakness that they have?
Yeah. If you have that answer for me, let me know. I mean, I think you've got to – I think you've got to keep it really, as much as it is coach speak, you've got to focus on yourself. I think that the key for us has been like, okay, here's the scout, but at the end of the day, it's about like, let's say you see somebody on a Saturday in the league, or even if you're fortunate enough to play on Sunday at the Ivy League tournament, that's the second game in 2 days, right? Like, so you've got to. It often comes down in our league to the ability to push through fatigue or to find just an extra ounce of something on a Saturday or the second leg. So I think whether it's Harvard or whoever it is, like you're going to have to respond. I think that's the key. And I know that I'm not answering your question fully, but I really do think that's what we talk about all the time is like, we're going to have the report, we're going to have the plan, and then sometimes the plan, you just get tossed right out the window, and how do you respond? Because every game tends to be a little bit different.
When you were a player at Princeton, you knew what it was like to get into the NCAA tournament, and you had a monumental win, a big-time upset against UCLA. Do any of those teams that you played on at Princeton kind of remind you of this bunch that you have right now coaching?
A lot. And no one's asked me that, but a lot. This is... to me, a very similar group and different personnel-wise and in some small ways, but it's the off-the-court stuff that I see. We had seniors that were good leaders and modeled the right way to do it, and we had good young players, and the group liked each other. They were close. They didn't take themselves too seriously. There was a good sense of humor on the team, and this team has that too. And I've just been enjoying watching them and being around them. And I wish the guys I played with could see it up close like I do every day, because it's a lot of fun to be around it.
Is it tough to keep the focus just because, winning the Ivy is a big accomplishment, but if you don't win the tournament coming up soon, it kind of doesn't mean that much because you want to get to the NCAA tournament. Is it tough to keep the focus right now with your team, or is it easier just because the way you guys are playing right now?
No, I mean, in fact, I see it very differently. I mean, I think the focus, if not now, is razor sharp. We've got, we had a goal in mind of getting a title. We'd like to have it be an outright title, and then we have a goal of making the tournament. And both of those things are really important to this group. And I think when we first decided to have a tournament, some people said, oh man, why does it have to be this year? Well, we'll worry about that on Saturday of tournament weekend. It's like right now, I think you do your best when you're just focused on what you can do today. And hey, look, the tournament is what we all want, right? But I think if you get too far out in front of yourself, you end up taking away from what you do best, which is just playing, just being in the moment.
Hey, Coach, last one before we let Coach Mitch Henderson run of Princeton Basketball. We encourage everyone to go out to the game at Jadwin Gymnasium on Friday at 5 against Harvard. Just since you know these guys better than anybody, give me a little insight on your team and tell me a few things that most people may not know if they just tune into a Princeton basketball game about this group.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, they don't take themselves too seriously. I think that there's a sense of humor with the group, and I'll just share one quick anecdote. We were on our way home on the bus on Sunday from Ithaca from playing Cornell, and the guys, I could hear them, like one guy would say something and like three guys would make fun of that guy. I think that when you're on a team where you can talk directly and honestly to each other and then laugh about it, I think that's a good recipe for the rest of your life. So I don't know. It's a fun group to be around, and I hope people can appreciate that, because I think they play hard too, and it's enjoyable to coach them, and hopefully we continue to be enjoyable to watch.
Well, Coach, we wish you the best of luck coming up at the end of the regular season. Then hopefully we see you guys cutting down the nets at the Palestra, the Cathedral of College Basketball. But we do appreciate the time today, and best of luck coming up on Friday.
Thanks, Zach.